your window is really, really small for what you're looking for. And
But it seems like women do what they like, and then they hit a certain age and say, oh, well, I've got to settle. But it's not settling, you're just getting whatever you can.
Deceived, right? Disrespected, because deceit is disrespect.
And you just come along with the fucking long arm of the law and you fucking. Men have been scared away from the idea of marriage, and that's a lot of that is the fault of this new bullshit law and this new feminism, this new crap. And there's a lot of men who are now like, okay, how do I not lose? Well, you know what? I become fucking ruthless.
Can I ask Brittany something, please? You know, like, then you've learned in the past, and now you want to find someone to settle down. With hindsight now, would you have reversed it and like started young, looking for someone to settle down with, looking for those values that now you know? I'm talking like with hindsight.
Okay, well, I actually, from 18 to 22, I was in a relationship. I've always actually been a lover girl, despite what I put out online for,
I've never
views.
seen you online.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, that's even better. I have always wanted one person, and I feel like I was so delusional in thinking that, oh, I'm like you said, like I have value, I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm at my peak. Like, why wouldn't you want to be with me? So going into these relationships, or just like, just people, my goal was always to get commitment. Like, I'm giving you my time, I'm pouring into you because I want commitment. And the reality is I'd never really understood my value. So I was going through guys, giving up sex, doing this, and it didn't make sense. So I believe in, like, I stand on everything I do. Like, I don't do apology tours. It is what it is. And I think that's where I feel like when they talk about women being delusional and all these other things, it is true. Because what you have to understand is that there are repercussions to your decisions, which is fine. So then you're talking about, okay, well, I want this type of guy, I want this, that, and that. You're talking about maybe monogamy. That's 3 to 5% of animals are monogamous. I think that's what it is, right? So your window is really, really small for what you're looking for. And even to go on to the point where you said, where you were talking about, it's like a subconscious fear. I think it's like, for me, I feel like if it was more of a fear, I would have just stayed in my situation. Like, it wouldn't have made sense. Like, I mean, that was my first kid. I thought I waited and did it right. I left because I believe it. There's something else on my heart when it comes to love, and I'm just going to have to trust that. And if that means being alone, having a dog, I have to take that chance, because the Bentley, the ring, the house, and still getting, again, deceived, right? Disrespected, because deceit is disrespect, right? So I cannot settle for that. I can't suck a dick and shut up. And that is where a lot of people don't like my views and what I represent, because it is something new. I don't know how it's going to fucking end. I don't know what's going to happen.
What would you tell your 17, if you had to, like, what would you tell your 17-year-old self, knowing what you know now? Looking back, and you had to meet yourself at 17, what would you tell what would you tell yourself? Like, lock it down and wait for the right man, don't have sex. What would you tell your 17-year-old self?
That the answers aren't outside of you, because I feel like I'd always look for men to answer all of my questions that I've ever had. I thought when I had a man, it would complete me. And I feel like too, especially with like my dad not being in my life, you look for somebody to guide me. Like, so that's where for me, I put too much value in someone else having the answers for me. So that's why I'm really big on accountability. So I would just tell myself, like, to be patient, to take your time, because I was always quick. Oh, let's try to get in a relationship. Like, we weren't even compatible. There's a lot of just not compatible factors. So I feel like for me, it would be to slow down and to really get to know people, instead of just blindly banking on potential that most likely will never be tapped into, or selling myself short because there's a fear of, well, I don't know, this could be the best that I could get. I might as well just shut up and suck a dick.
And that's what I meant about women nowadays, because exactly what you'd be telling your 17-year-old self is what happened back in the day. So when I'm repeating these things, I'm going, oh, you're old-fashioned. But it seems like women do what they like, and then they hit a certain age and say, oh, well, I've got to settle. But it's not settling. You're just getting whatever you can. Or whatever you deserve.
You know what?
Because
Auntie,
if you think back now, you'd be telling people now, rather than say that Auntie's old-fashioned or Auntie don't know what she's talking about, look what she'd be telling her 17-year-old self, which ain't nothing that I ain't already said.
Yeah,
because
that's fine.
really and truly, let me finish. Because what I've always said, and you can check, I'm an older version of you. So where you've been, I've already been on up comeback. So that's why I asked you, what would you tell your 17-year-old self? Because me telling you is, I'm telling my 30-year-old self. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So it's not that I'm old-fashioned. It's just that women hit a certain age and then realize, oh my God, it wasn't that old-fashioned. You know, it works because it does. But there's no point in waiting till you're a certain age to start thinking about it. You know, even if you're like, you hold your own accountability. So it's like if you meet somebody and they were like 17, 18 and you saw them acting a certain way, they ask you for advice, you wouldn't say, do as I do. You say, listen, this is what happened to me. And this is what I thought. And what I recommend you do is blah, blah, blah. Am I right or am I wrong? If they ask you for your advice.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Like, I totally agree with that. I think that no matter what you decide to do, you have to accept whatever repercussions come behind that. So any advice that I give to anybody is do what you want, but just know there are repercussions, good, bad, or indifferent, that are going to come behind it. So, I mean, and I think that's just where I'm at. I don't even think it's like an age thing. I think it's like, in reality, I have a son, and you really start asking yourself questions. And again, I hate that it took having a child to really look into my life and call myself out on my bullshit.
So if you got pregnant earlier, if you got pregnant at 18, 19, would it?
I was always on birth control.
Okay.
I was on birth control for a decade. I got off birth control because the person I was with wanted to have a baby.
Okay.
So again, I thought I did it right. Clearly not, because I wasn't married, but it still didn't work out because it just wasn't my guy. So that's where I just think, like, even if I still would have taken it slow, there just were a lot of people that just were genuinely not my person, and that's okay.
I would just
speaking of marriage, I wanted to know, do you think we're in a post-marriage society? Because on one hand, we hear that women should wait till they're married to have sex, but at the same time, we also hear from the men that they don't want to get married anymore. So what do we do with that?
Seems like it's true, because nowadays a lot of people are looking at marriage as a contract rather than a partnership. And there's a huge difference between that, because with a contract, there are so many terms and many headaches and this and that. And
well, it is a contract.
Well,
Yeah.
women
are
that's
paid to
why.
leave, yeah.
But that's because that is what it is now. Because realistically, the traditional sense of marriage is not a contract, really, in terms of the law. Once the law is involved, that's when everything went tits up, I think.
Yeah. So the problem is that there's zero advantage to marriage in the Western world for a man. There is zero statistical advantage. If you use your mind, if you use your head instead of your heart, and you look at the advantages to getting married, there are absolutely and utterly none. Because this new idea of new age feminism just basically destroys all men in the idea, in the event of her leaving. And it's very common that women leave, right? Let's stop the man versus woman attack, et cetera, et cetera. Life's difficult for everybody. We all have different challenges, different things to go through. But if a woman marries a man and it goes wrong, she has emotional heartbreak, fine. But if a man marries a woman and it goes wrong, he has emotional heartbreak. Plus, everything he has ever worked for is ripped out from underneath him, and he has to give that chick money forever.
In some places, you don't even have to be married.
Exactly.
That's why the men don't want to live with the women either.
That's right. So when you make these rules and these laws, right, under the guise of feminism and equality, all this garbage, all you're doing is scaring men away from commitment. And then you have to add in the other hidden element, and the other hidden element is what I said earlier, is whose fault a lot of this is promiscuous women, right? So when society's broken down, if women were saying, if all women got together and said, we'll only have sex after marriage, guess what men would do? Get married. But you don't, right? So now you're in Miami. I go to Miami. I can fuck anything in the club. I don't have to marry any of them. If I marry them, I get wrecked. So, like, let's all use our brains here. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to be like, well, no. Bounce. See ya. No. So men have been scared away from the idea of marriage, and that's a lot of that is the fault of this new bullshit law and this new feminism and this new crap. They don't give men any tactical advantage. And I'm talking about small things. A man's not even allowed to be a man in his own house. You know, in England, you will get accused of emotional abuse. I can marry a woman, not lay a hand on her. I can just raise my voice at her. That's emotional abuse. I can raise my voice at her because she's going out drinking with dudes. She can go out drinking 6 nights a week with men. And I can say, what the fuck, you're my wife, sit down. She can call the cops, call me emotionally abusive. I get arrested now. Now there's a court case against me. I have to go to court and defend myself. She'll divorce me, take my house. I have to sell my car because she's drinking vodka with fucking God knows who.
But you notice that
It's
earlier on.
insanity.
What do you think of child support?
And that's another interesting thing, because a lot of these arguments, it goes beyond man and woman, and it goes into the larger sphere as a whole, right? Because we talked earlier about war and how a lot of men used to die, and that doesn't happen anymore. So what you used to have in societies, and I'm not saying I have all the answers, I'm just commenting, right? What you used to have in societies is a bunch of men would die at war, because men have more dangerous lives than women. There'd be a bunch more women than men. the top G's would impregnate a bunch of women, and the top G's could take care of the women, and that'd be it, et cetera, et cetera. That's now changed, right? So a lot of the reason that monogamy is pushed is because it's good for society. And it is good for society. It's good for society as a whole to have a man, a woman, a family, they're together, the man provides for the woman, et cetera. The government doesn't want to pay for all these kids. If you don't have child support, who's paying for these kids? The government does it. It breaks down, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why child support is enforced in many parts of the world. In certain other parts of the world, child support isn't enforced because they have religious beliefs or genuine family beliefs that keep the families together. But in the Western world, now you need child support because you've broken things down to the point where men don't want to be married to chicks. Chicks don't want to listen to the man. The man can't even be the man in his own household. He can't even feel respected where he goes. His woman gives him no status. And now he doesn't want to fucking deal with her anymore. So how do you get that kid paid for? Well, then tell the man, or you go to jail. And you just come along with the fucking long arm of the law and you fuck him. And so, yeah, it's difficult. It's hard to answer. Yeah, but it's hard to answer. The true answer to all of it is an idealistic answer. I don't like to think idealistically and talk idealistically, but it's the truth. The true answer to it is to instill in the man a sense of duty in which he wants to take care of his woman regardless, because that's his child. But you will do that. I'll tell you how you do that. You do that by inspiring out of the man by being a very good woman. So I'll give you an example. If I had a child with a woman, and she was always a great woman to me. She never cheated on me. She was a good woman to me. And I was running around being whatever. And she's like, look, I just can't put up with you anymore. You're top G. You're going to do what you're going to do. I'm going to look after your kid. You can see him anytime you want. I care about you. Please don't leave me in poverty. I'd say, cool. 100%. I'm not a fucking dickhead.
Can I
cool,
say
that's a real man though, because I was in a situation but I was just in a situation like that to where it's like hearts don't break even, and that's the reality too. It's like if those morals and principles are not instilled in a man, none of that shit matters. So obviously the child support stuff obviously hits close home to me because I'm already $50,000 just in lawyer fees trying to get him to provide. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it sucks because it's like you play in the NBA, like why don't you want to do more? And it's just because, again, of the relationship. It's personal. It's not about our son.
Personal. That's right.
So it's like, if you're not.
So I just feel like it's like, why do you get money for making a poor choice?
Well, it wasn't a poor choice because it took two.
I'm not trying to like disrespect you in any way. It's just like, if you left. And
no.
so it's like, why do you get money for it? It just doesn't make sense.
Because we made a commitment. At the end of the day, we made a commitment. We have a forever commitment. Fuck marriage. We are forever family. So again, as someone who is literally going through this, if I made more money than him, I would be paying him child support, and that would be fair to me.
But this is what's really interesting. What's truly interesting is if you go to other countries, and I'm talking about civilized countries, right? If you go to Poland or Czech Republic or whatever, these countries, which are in many metrics more civilized than the West, they're safer to live in, they're cleaner, etc. There's no child support laws. So if you have a divorce, the man just takes care of the woman because that's his kid and that's just what he's supposed to do and that's just it. So what you're saying is, you're right about the man having the morality instilled inside of them. And my point is that the reason a lot of this doesn't exist, the reason men don't have morality installed in them is not just about the individual case of the man. It's about society as a whole. It's about women as a whole, men as a whole, the dating game as a whole, the life he's living as a whole. And this is the world we live in. This is why I was talking about how dangerous new think is, because now we have this new think, this new world, and we're living in this new world. And the truth is, as a man, now the game has changed. In the game of chess, sometimes it's not about winning. It's about making sure you don't lose. If you can not lose, if you can not blunder any pieces and protect your king long enough, you'll win the game. And there's a lot of men who are now like, okay, how do I not lose? Well, you know what? I become fucking ruthless. That's how I don't lose. I get all my sex because the women are promiscuous. I get laid as much as I want. I don't let anyone fucking tie me into anything dumb. Any bitch wants to get fresh to me or fucking talk to another dude, I cut her off financially. And you just get ruthless so you don't lose the game. But that's because the game's been rigged against men. So the harder you rig the game against us, the more ruthless we're going to have to be to compete. And it's unfortunate. I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm just saying why men do what they do.
Can I just say